Okay, hello everyone. My name is Madeline Pig, and today I'll be talking about the ichthyologist Theodore Wells Pietsch III. Here's just some background information on his education. He's currently a professor of ichthyology at the University of Washington, where he continues to conduct research. These are just some of the awards that he's won over the years. And here are some of his more famous publications. I thought it was interesting that he wrote The Curious Death of Peter Artedi, but today we're going to focus on anglerfish. The study I'm talking about is Dimorphism, Parasitism, and Sex Revisited, Modes of Reproduction Among Deep-Sea Ceratioid Anglerfishes. In this suborder, these fish are found living very deep. Daytime depths are below 300 meters, and they have extreme sexual dimorphism. So this fish here, the large one is the female, and the small attachment is actually the male. And they have unique ways to reproduce because it's so hard to find each other in the deep seas. They will either be obligatory parasitism, facultative parasitism, or temporary non-parasitic attachment. And in his study, Pietsch went through and looked at old museum specimens, and he documented the details of 11 different families, and he brought the current knowledge more up to date for their reproductive methods. These are the 11 different families that he looked at, and I'll talk about a few of them in detail. Okay, the Calophrenidae family, he was able to find 5 male specimens. The museums were very reluctant to give up specimens because they were so rare and so hard to find, but there were 2 free-living and 3 parasitically attached. The free-living ones were smaller and had immature testes, but once they attached, their large eyes and olfactory organs would degenerate because they didn't need them anymore to find the female, and their testes would mature. And he documented the ovaries and egg diameters for each family. These ones were fairly large, up to 30% the standard length, and these females were a bit unique because they became sexually mature even if a male was attached or not. Most of the fish in this family, in this suborder, they would only sexually mature when the male was attached. Here's a species in the family of a male attached to a female, and this white disc here is where their tissues fused, and the female's circulatory system became continuous with the male's, so she would provide nutrients, and he would provide sperm, and they would fertilize the eggs externally. And here is the fish, the male fish, free living. He has much larger pectoral fins, and he's able to swim and feed himself on his own. So this family is considered facultative parasites. The next family is the Melanocytidae, and these males were a little bit larger, up to 23.5 millimeters, and they found 3 males that were attached with no tissue fusion. They also had small testes, though, at 12.7% the standard length, but once they fertilized the eggs, they would detach and metamorphosize. So they would develop larger teeth, and their eyes and nostrils remained large, but their testes did shrink. And the females in this family had the biggest ovaries of all the fish he looked at, up to 46.7% the standard length. So here you can see a couple pictures of the male attached to the female. In this picture on the left, there's no tissue fusion, that white disc is gone, so he will temporarily attach to fertilize the eggs, and then he can go on living. So these are not considered parasitic. Here's the free-living male, and he looks about the same as he did when he was attached. The only thing that changed really were his testes didn't shrink, and his teeth did develop more. Okay, the next family are the Oneiroidae, and he had the most samples from this family. Up to 40% of the ceratioids in all the museums are represented by this family, and they're continuing to be discovered. They were once thought of as not being parasitic, but recently they found 2 attached males, and they had the largest livers of all the males, but their testes were relatively small. And the females were smaller as well, smaller ovaries and smaller size. So these are some of the free-living males, and when they were free-living, they didn't have anything in their stomachs. And let's see. So they did have the anatomy to feed themselves, but they all had empty stomachs. So they think that their large livers had enough stores to sustain them for a while, and that it was just really hard to find prey down in the deep sea. Okay, the next family is the best known of all the ceratioids. They have the largest free-living males, up to 140 millimeters, and pretty large females as well. And but the free-living males, they had small testes just like before. They did not eat. They had very small nares but really large eyes. And this is a trade-off. They preferred the large eyes because the females, they had bioluminescence. They had those lures that would glow, but they didn't have pheromones. So the males had no need for nostrils. They just wanted those large eyes. And once they would attach, their testes would develop, but their eyes would degenerate and had a very poorly developed alimentary canal, which is just their digestive tract. And these are the free-living males. As you can see, their eyes are pretty large, and they had a really large aphakic space, which kind of just brought in more light to their retinas. And so they had empty stomachs, like I said, and that they would never fully mature until they attached to a female, and they're considered to be obligatory sexual parasites. They did have tissue fusion, just like the Calophrenidae family, but the free-living males didn't eat. They could only rely on the females to give them nutrients. Okay, these are the other families. These had no evidence of sexual parasitism, and it was mostly because they had insufficient samples. The only males that they could find were free-living, and they could only find a couple in some of the species. Particularly this family, Ichthyologist. I hope I'm saying that right, but I think they only found like one free-living male. And these ones over here that did display parasitic attachment, they shared some of the same traits as the other ones we just spoke about. Okay, so the key points of his study that he focused on was that not all ceratioids depend on obligatory parasitic reproduction, and that has been something that people believed in the past, and he wanted to clarify that that's not the case. And most males in the families would exhibit sexual parasitism. That did exhibit sexual parasitism. They would never fully mature until they attached to the female. And these obligatory parasitic reproductive families had very low numbers of individuals that actually reproduce. They said up to 90% of the fish living in the ocean, if it was representative of the data they had, never reproduced. Okay, and here are my references, and I hope you guys are having a good day. Bye.